BBC London 94.9.
London's news, London's stories.
Hello, good afternoon. 5 minutes past 12. This is Iain Lee, filling in for Robert Elms, who's having a well-deserved day off. Don't panic, though. Lots coming up in the show. I tell you what, let's have some music, and then I'll tell you what's coming up after a little bit of Blondie, shall we? Yes. Why not? Hello, this is Iain Lee, BBC London. It's nearly 10 minutes past 12. Sitting in for Robert Elms today. But don't panic, don't panic. There are all the usual things that Robert would normally be doing. Lots coming up, including art critic Estelle Lovett's coming in. Now, let me put my cards on the table, dear listener. I know very little about the world of art. I know Estelle knows lots about it, so I'm hoping she can fill in the blanks. One of the things she's talking about, though, the light show at the Hayward Gallery. Oh, I've heard good things about this. It's kind of the sort of pop art. I don't mean pop art in the literal sense. I mean the kind of art that I can dig, because it's not statues and paintings. It's all weird kind of... Well, you can guess from the title, The Light Show, it's lights in strange ways. The cover to cover today as well, coming up after 1 o'clock. My choice. I got very excited. I got a sneaky text last night saying, could you choose a song for cover to cover? I thought, oh, fantastic, wonderful. I'll have a little rifle through my collection. I've got a corker. It was the song that was the opening song. They don't call it the opening song, do they? The first dance, that's it, at my wedding. That's the more appropriate phrase. We've got that and a fantastic cover version of it. More on that anon. And later on, I'm going to be speaking to Josh West, who's a London bus driver. London bus driver. What's so unusual about that? Well, he then went and drove a kind of strange bus through the Philippines, I think. It sounds hellish. You have to wonder why anybody would want to do something like that, and he's coming in a little bit later on to tell me why. If you want to get in touch today, listen, I feel a little bit lonely. I'm new here. I don't want to offend anybody. I'd love it if you gave me a telephone call at some point today. The phone number is 0207 224 2000. You can, of course, text me, 81333. Start your text with the word London. Just say hello. I want to make sure that people are listening. It would be awful to think that all of Robert's usual listeners have gone, jog on, fella, I'm not listening to this muppet. And they've switched off. It would be nice to know you're with me. I'm going to do my best to keep the spirit of the show. And it's a great honour to be here today. 0207 224 2000 is the phone number. Let's have some more music, shall we? Plain White Tees, Hey There Delilah. There we go, Plain White Tees, Hey There Delilah. Hello, this is Iain Lee on BBC London. Nice to be here. The song I'm going to play later on after 1 o'clock for cover to cover is a very special song to me. I think it's one of the best pop songs of all time, without any shadow of a doubt. I just think it's gorgeous and it just sounds majestic. But one of the reasons why it's so important to me is because it was the first dance at my wedding. And for those of you who've chosen a first dance, it's kind of a tough thing, isn't it, to choose a song that means something to you and to your wife or your husband, but that also kind of fits in and is a bit romantic. The song we chose... my mother-in-law hated it. Absolutely hated it. And when we told her what it was, she's Greek and a little bit bonkers. I'm not being racist. It's true. I'm not saying all Greek people are bonkers. But anyway, we chose it and we told her the song. She went, oh, yeah, that sounds like a nice idea. Then she went away and Googled the words, as is fashionable these days, and came back and we got a right royal rollicking. We got told off. Actually told off. I think, how old was I? 37 years old. And I was getting told off for my choice of music. And I got a bit... Suddenly I turned into 15-year-old me and got quite defensive and a bit, whoa, hang on a minute, I'm not being told what music... I'll tell you the song. It's God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. Wonderful celebration of life and of love and of just... It's that kind of teenage yearning that the Beach Boys were so good at, particularly on the Pet Sounds album. But the thing that really upset my then future mother-in-law was the first line, I may not always love you. Now, yeah, I know, as a kind of a romantic opener to a relationship, the first dance, yeah, I may not always love you, but it perhaps doesn't... isn't quite the most appropriate line. But then it goes on to say how this love is, if I stop loving you, then there won't be any stars and the whole world will have fallen apart. So this afternoon, could you give me a call or a cheeky little text? Not too cheeky, that would be inappropriate. And let me know your first dances that you chose for your wedding. And there'll be lots of... I've been to so many weddings where it's all a little bit schmaltzy and a little bit awkward. Friends of mine spent months getting dance lessons for their first dance. Literally about 3 months. They would go twice a week. She was well up for it. He wasn't quite so keen. And they would go and have dance lessons, a couple of hours a week. And everyone was like, oh, have you heard that they're having dance lessons? The first dance is going to be amazing. And everyone was very excited. And when the first dance came, everybody was stood around the dance floor waiting for this wonderful thing that they'd spent. I think they'd spent a few £100 on these dance lessons. I'm not going to name them. That would be unfair for them. But what they hadn't taken into account is that during the dance, she would be wearing a really long dress and would have to be holding up some of the dress. So her right arm was taken up holding the train of this dress. They hadn't accounted for that in their months of dance lessons. So within about 20 seconds, the whole dance fell apart. Very embarrassing. It didn't look good. Could you give me a call or send me a text? Your first dance at your wedding, what was it? How did you choose it? And were there any arguments about it? I'd imagine as well, I would imagine it'd be the blokes that would be trying to go for something maybe a little bit avant-garde. I felt cheeky pushing a Beach Boys song in there. I thought that was a little bit geeky. But there must be some blokes out there that have, you know, you've gone for a Neil Young song or something by Def Leppard and your wife wants, I don't know, Michael Bublé? Oh dear, if my wife had suggested something like Michael Bublé. I like him. I think he's a very talented entertainer, but I certainly couldn't marry that woman. 0207 224 2000 is the phone number. You can send me a text, 813 Start your text with the word London. I want to know your first dance at your wedding. How did you choose it? And was there any tension between you and your partner, or maybe your future in-laws? 0207 224 2000. Hopefully speak to you after this. This is Iain Lee on BBC London. Hello, this is Iain Lee on BBC London. We're talking, just by way of a conversation, we're talking about your first dance at your wedding. Who chose the song, and was there any tension? My first dance was God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. The first line, I may not always love you. It's perhaps not the most romantic of lines. Well, Lucy from Hackney's called in. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, how are you doing?
All right, Lucy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. What was your first dance at your wedding?
Okay, so I'm just going to set the scene a little bit for you.
Okay, let's
we got
imagine
married
this.
we got married in Las Vegas at the Little White Wedding Chapel, and it wasn't like just an off-the-cuff thing. It was because I've got family living there, so we had our wedding reception over in my auntie's back garden in Las Vegas, and we had loads of friends and family come over from England and Ireland and whatnot.
Yeah.
And anyway, we hadn't planned to have a first dance at all.
What do you mean you hadn't planned to have a first dance? That's one of the big enjoyable moments of a wedding.
No, but it wasn't a typical wedding. We didn't want a weddingy wedding, you know?
Oh, you didn't want a weddingy wedding?
No.
No.
So anyway, we after a couple of champers and whatnot,
yes.
the music went on, and suddenly we put on A Little Less Conversation, the remix by Elvis.
Yeah.
And we got up and we just started just going for it, man. There's
when you say just going for it, you mean dancing, yes?
Yes, I do definitely mean dancing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And did it? Because normally in the first dance, everyone stands around you and watches and goes, "Oh, it's romantic." They make a lovely couple. Did that? I'm guessing that didn't happen.
Everyone was just like, "Wow!" I'm sorry, I probably put loads of your listeners off there. I'm sorry about that. Everyone was just cheering and going, "Go for it!" And just having a laugh.
How long?
Wedding, it's supposed to be fun, right?
It is supposed to be fun, right? How long ago did you get married?
October last year, so that's why I'm still a bit hyperactive about it.
I can tell. And can I ask, are you still together?
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know these days, Lucy. I just don't know anything. And did you not feel, because some people might say, getting married in Las Vegas, it's a little bit tacky. I'm not saying that, Lucy. I'm not saying that in the slightest, but some people might think it's a little bit tacky. Did any of your family say that?
No, they did not. And I admit, maybe going to Las Vegas and getting married, like as other people would do, just the two of you, that would be some wrong people might say that was tacky. Yeah, but I've got family living over there, so it was a big family wedding we had in Las Vegas. So it wasn't tacky at all, man. It was like beautiful.
Lucy, I'm not having a go. Don't get defensive with me, please. It sounds wonderful, and you're very much in love. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks.
Bye, Lucy.
You as well.
There we go. Bye-bye. 0207 224 2000. That was lovely. Lucy's very much in love with her husband. Congratulations. There we go. Bruce Springsteen, Streets of Philadelphia, which is always a pleasure to hear. This is Iain Lee on BBC London. I'm asking you today, your first dance that you had at your wedding. I'll play mine a bit later on. It's a cracking song. We're going to play cover to cover. We've got two brilliant versions of it. It's God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. A superb cover version of it. It's going to be a tough one to decide which is the best. You have to listen with fresh ears because it's a song you know so well. 0207 224 2000, or you can text 81333. Start your text with the word London. What was your first dance at your wedding, and did it cause any controversy? We'll talk more after the latest news with Richard Main. Hello, dear listener. This is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9. I'm here till 3 o'clock today. We've got lots to cram in. So let's crack on, shall we? Joined now by art critic Estelle Lovett. Good morning. Good afternoon, Estelle.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing? You all right?
I'm very, very well.
I'm very excited because later on we're going to be talking about a show that I might actually even go and see, which is kind of my favourite pastime is to sit at home reading and not really doing a lot. So to hear about some of these is very exciting, but there's one, The Light Show, we'll talk about later on, I'm very excited about. What bits and pieces have we got first of all? More Rodin.
Yeah, more Rodin, as in Henry Moore, and even more Rodin.
Well, that confused me to start with. The two have teamed up for a super art exhibition. How is this working?
Well, one of our greatest British sculptors, Henry Moore, of course, or some people like to think of him as the man who puts holes in women's stomachs, you know, sort of the donut of sculpture.
Right, that's a terrible thing to be famous for, isn't it?
Well,
really?
I don't know. And then, of course, Rodin, the very famous Impressionist French sculptor, who actually was accused by the critics of being too good. You know, most of the time the art critics say you're bad as an artist, but he was accused of being too good because one of his figures looked as though it was actually cast from human form itself. They thought he cheated, and he said, no, I did it from scratch.
It's something I've never been accused of being too good. That's I could only dream of having that. Why are these two being paired up? Listen, and speak to me as though I am an idiot around art, because I am an idiot around art, so don't think you can be too basic on any of this, Estelle.
Henry Moore spent the last 40-plus years of his life in a farmhouse where he built his studios, 70 acres of wonderful English countryside, Peregrine in Hertfordshire. Yep. And one of his favourite artists was Rodin. Right. Another one was Michelangelo. Rodin also admired Michelangelo, and the Henry Moore Foundation have had this wonderful idea to combine Moore and Rodin together, and they've had Henry Moore's daughter, Mary, come in and help curate it. Right. So you walk in, and, for example, there's a selection of Henry Moore's bits that he collected against Rodin's bits, and it's everything. It's not just expensive pieces of art, it's also shells that maybe Henry Moore picked up whilst walking on the beach in Frinton, and he thought, wow, they look pretty amazing, and he'd just take them home and put them on a shelf and exhibit them as though they were an artefact.
I see.
But
so it's not just their works of art.
No, it's things they collected as well.
Okay.
But of the sculptures, there's one that's normally outside the Houses of Parliament by Rodin.
I read about this. It's huge, and they've shifted it, haven't they?
They've moved. They put it on the back of a truck.
Wow.
And slapped it down to Hertfordshire.
Fantastic.
And they've placed it right on the grass. So normally it's 4.5 feet in the air on a plinth. Right. And they've placed it on the grass so you can really look through it. And plinths are really important. Rodin was probably the first artist to think, now, what shall I do with the plinth? Shall I have it 5 feet high, or shall I have it 1 inch off the ground?
Right.
People don't consider those things. But then when you compare the Rodin works next to the Henry Moore works, which are either sort of backs of women with holes in them or fractured limbs, sort of unfinished, finished works of sculpture. We're not too sure. But the idea was to make it look as though a bit of clay had just fallen into that shape. Right. And very often Henry Moore would actually make a piece of clay fall into a particular shape because he'd let it fall on the floor. He'd drop it and he'd pick it up and he'd say...
And he would call that art? Some might say that's a little bit lazy. Just let a bit of clay fall on the floor, and that'll do. That'll do.
But it's aspirational. I mean,
Yes.
doesn't it make you want to grab a piece of plasticine or something?
A bit of Play-Doh. Can I just say, they put that statue on that sculpture on the grass, as a father of young boys, that grass is going to be ruined. I know if ever I put down a paddling pool or something on the grass, even for a couple of days, that grass is dead. That's never growing back.
And the other thing is, I don't know have you got sheep in your garden like Henry Moore?
I don't have sheep in my garden, Estelle. No, I don't.
You see, Henry Moore's got sheep in his garden,
Right.
and they all go right up to the sculptures and sort of scratch themselves on it. But Henry Moore loved that.
Whereabouts is this? If people want to go and see this.
This is Perry Green in Hertfordshire, which is less than an hour away in the car from London. But the reason I mention it here is because, of course, Henry Moore lived in Hampstead for a period, and also the Rodin sculpture going from outside the Houses of Parliament in London for this exhibition. It's lovely. Even if it's snowing outside, just take your wellies.
And does it work having two different artists? Is this quite common to have two different artists displayed together?
Well, this is the first time that the Henry Moore Foundation have actually invited another artist to exhibit alongside Moore. So this is unusual, but it works because their inspirations and their starting points and their ideas were both the same.
Okay. So it gets the thumbs up for you. You're recommending we should make the journey, make the effort to go and have a little look.
And you can have a look around Moore's farmhouse where he
See,
lived.
now, that grabs me a lot more. I do like having a nosy round people's houses. Is it set up as it was when he lived there?
As it was, yeah. Exactly as it was. So his yellow lounge, his yellow carpeted front room, and apparently you had to take your shoes and socks off, before you could go in, because his wife, little Russian Irina Moore, was very particular. Actually, she sort of spurred him on quite a lot, because she'd say to him, Henry, who would go and pay to see your sculptures when they can see Michelangelo or Donatello for free?
How rude.
Well,
I do like her taking your shoes off, though. We have that same rule in our house, Estelle. If you ever come round, shoes off, please. We may lend you some slippers. Okay, so that's more Rodin at the Perry Green in Hertfordshire. Manet.
Yeah.
What's he up to these days?
Well, it's funny you say that, because if he was alive today, he'd be tweeting and he'd be Facebooking.
Really?
Yeah, definitely, because he was an artist who was so into who was around, who was famous at the time.
Right.
So the paintings he did were either portraits of famous people. It was almost like flicking through Hello or OK magazine. So the paintings he did, there'd be famous singers, famous artists, famous authors in the paintings. But also part of his private life that we're only just beginning to discover. For example, his wife, Suzanne, very famous pianist who was recommended by one of the great pianists at the time to go and seek a job at the Manet household, had a relationship, in inverted commas, with both Manet and his father. She became pregnant with the son Leon.
Yes.
So we'll see Leon in the portraits there. We're not too sure who the father is, if it's Manet or the father.
It's like an episode of Jeremy Kyle.
It's amazing.
We need the all-important DNA results.
Yeah. So this boy, this Leon, who actually didn't become a painter in the end himself, but we don't know if it's Manet's half-brother or his son, but there's portraits of him. There are also portraits that look unfinished.
Right.
And people think... people thought, especially at the time, why on earth are we praising this artist? His pictures look unfinished. And Manet said, listen, my pictures are unfinished to look at because they have as much information in them as possible, so they look sketchy. But of course he was the father, if you like, of Impressionism, or the force that fed Impressionism.
Right.
But he was a brilliant painter, very academic as well, and could paint very realistically, very photographically, but he wasn't interested in doing that. He just wanted to change the course of art history, which he did do.
Is that all he wanted? I just want to change the course. But was he aware at the time that he was changing the course of art history? You can't be, can you, if you're doing that? You can only appreciate that retrospectively, surely.
That's a good question. He was aware that he was doing something new because all the galleries kept refusing him to have an exhibition. So he knew that he was onto something. And he was financially independent, so he wasn't reliant on selling his paintings, so he could do what he wanted to.
Yep.
And, of course, then you'll also see portraits, apart from his wife and Leon, the boy who we're not sure who's the father is, we'll also see portraits of Bertha Morisot, who he had a soft spot for. He never had an
These artists
affair,
are so mucky. They are mucky. Their minds are all off. Oh, it's the Muse. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so that's at the Royal Academy. Is that on now?
That's on now until the 14th of April.
Okay. Liechtenstein.
Yeah, this is great because you can either be a high art snob or a low art slob.
For those who don't know, because I think I know the name, and then you see the pictures, and the pictures, he's the guy that does pictures that look like they're from comics.
Exactly,
basically.
Yeah. So he's to America what the bricks are to us. You know, the bricks in the Tate Gallery, just a pile of bricks. Okay, so people didn't quite get him, but as I say, you're either a high art snob or a low art slob.
Is that proper art? Is that kind of comic art proper art?
What Liechtenstein would do is he would take a comic, and a comic box in a whole page is maybe 2 by 1.5 inches in size, right? He would scale it up so they'd be enormous, maybe 4 foot by 3 foot. He'd draw it from hand onto a piece of paper, change it slightly. He may change the angles, he may change some of the text, some of the colouring, and then he'd paint it by hand to look as though it's been commercially printed.
Right.
So the Ben-Day dots, that's just the name of the commercial dots that you see in the comics, the little... The Ben-Day dots would be painted by hand with a toothbrush that he would push through the bristles through a handmade steel sheet that he had holes made into. And it would look like a comic. So some people say, OK, what's the point of it? Well... before his exhibitions even opened, when he was still alive, they sold out. So people were interested in buying these images. And it wasn't just comics. He would also look at 1950s catalogues where women would be seen in the kitchen, 2.2 children and Tupperware, Pyrex, etc. And he would use those images. And funnily enough, there weren't photographs in them at the time. They were drawings.
Right.
So he would transcribe other people's drawings. And then the other issue, of course, is, well, what about the original cartoonists that did the drawings in the first place?
Yeah, surely they're doing the creative bit, aren't they? Because they were there, they came up with the original idea, and he's just copying it and changing it a little bit. He's
copying it, changing it, but now people have started to demand to know who the original DC comic artist was. But he never said, I'm making a straight copy. And it all started because his son got his dad, Liechtenstein, to read from his comic book, and his son turned round to him and said, Dad, I bet you can't draw as well as one of these. And he was 37 years old at the time, so sort of a little bit late in life to sort of flourish as a young artist. But that was a life-changing moment for him, because previous to that, you'll see a lot of paintings which are just very thick brushstrokes of abstract colour.
Yep.
He was part of the abstract expressionist New York.
Would you call this, is this pop art? It looks pop art to me.
Yes, it is pop art.
Right.
And people always think that the Americans started pop art. They didn't. We did here with an artist like Richard Hamilton.
Yes.
But the Americans always do it bigger and better, as you know. And America made pop art sexy.
We had a go at making it sexy with bands like The Who and the kind of mod movement. We sort of made it a bit sexy.
Yeah, no, in music-wise, we were leading and they were following.
Picasso, that's the Liechtenstein is at the Tate Modern.
Yes.
Picasso, becoming Picasso.
I mean, can you imagine when Picasso was 19 years old, a young boy in Paris? So he'd left Spain and he's thinking, right, what can I do to make my name? And funnily enough, whilst he's in Paris, I must just tell you, it's nothing to do with this exhibition, but it's really interesting because the Mona Lisa was stolen.
Yes, I've heard about this, and he was kind of linked with it, wasn't he?
Well, they suspected him, not because he was a thief in any way under any other charges, but he used to spend all day in the Louvre copying the great masters. So they sort of, clocked him and thought, he's here a lot.
Yes.
And then when the painting got stolen, they thought, I wonder if
Did he get hauled in for questioning?
Pablo.
They had a word with him, didn't they?
They did have a word with him. But of course he wasn't Picasso then, he was just Pablo.
Some hoodlum. Didn't they find it rolled up in the Louvre somewhere?
Yeah, no, they found it. One of the employees had stolen it. Thought that they could sell it on.
Yeah, of course.
Ridiculous how people still works of art so famous and think, I'll sell
that down the market.
Yeah.
That'll be easy. It's Mona Lisa. Yes.
Yeah.
So what's this exhibition we've got?
So this exhibition is how he leaves Spain. He goes to Paris. He's very interested in seeing what's going on in Paris, because Paris at the time is the centre of the art world.
Yep.
And he sees all this all these fantastic artists. He sees Cézanne and Manet and Monet and all the other Impressionists, and he tries to emulate their style, not to make copies or forgeries of them, but to try and learn from them. So there's wonderful examples of Toulouse-Lautrec, for example, the little guy. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know him, the wee fella. Yeah.
Yeah, the wee fella. And the paintings that you see here, they're not all great,
right?
But they're the turning point in Picasso becoming Picasso from just becoming Pablo.
It's him learning, isn't it, and getting his own, what we would call a voice, his own voice and his own style, isn't it?
Yes, and there's a couple of paintings which are really important to see there. First of all, there's the Harlequin series, and people say, the Harlequin, the Joker, if you like, that's a sort of a reference to Picasso. And then there's also a painting called Child with a Dove, which has just been sold. It's going to be leaving the country soon. This is the last chance to see it. So a little boy holding a
dove.
There's a dove,
right?
And there's
I'm kind of guessing from the title, so I don't know.
He's holding a ball,
right?
And some people say it's a portrait of his little son,
right?
The child's wearing a dress, but that's okay because posh boys used to wear dresses.
They still do.
Right.
They still do these days. Listen, we're running out of time. That's becoming Picasso. That's we're at the Courtauld Gallery.
Yes.
I want to squeeze this one in because a friend of mine, Paul, my friend Paul, the other day said, "You must go and see this show. You'll love it. The Light Show at the Hayward Gallery on the South Bank. I've not been yet." It's just lights.
You've got to go.
It looks brilliant.
You've really got to go. Actually, it was going to be on until end of April. It's now been extended into May. It's brilliant. And it all started with Dan Flavin, who's an American artist. And he just used commercially made fluorescent light strips, like the ones that you've got above you in your studio. And he just would construct light sculptures. That's the best way I can describe it, is light sculptures. So there's Dan Flavin there. There's also Eliasson. And Eliasson works with strobe lighting and water.
Oh, I love it.
It flickers on and off, and so you think that a sculpture is moving behind you, behind and in front of you, all around you. It's all encompassing. There's also Villarreal, who creates this wonderful cascading, and it's been orchestrated, lights that are orchestrated because they flow down tubes at various moments in time, and you can stand there forever because it never repeats the pattern.
Yeah.
And it changes colour.
See, this sounds really exciting to me. All the other stuff, it sounds kind of cool. But this sounds wonderful and different and a little bit pretentious and exciting and funny and all the things that I kind of want. I tell you what this reminds me of, for no other reason than it's just a little bit left of centre. Do you remember a few years ago at the Barbican, they had an exhibition where it was a room full of electric guitars. No, the electric guitars and the birds flying around. It's a room full of birds, and they would land on the electric guitars and play them. This kind of feels similar to me in that it's a little bit odd.
It is, but don't forget, using light bulbs, as I say, going right back to Dan Flavin since the 1960s, it's not new, but the way it's been used with computers, because a lot of it is worked out, is computer generated, it's just extraordinary, and you will come out feeling as though you've been to an all-night party, and your eyes feel like they've got matchsticks inside them.
I would be worried that would I come out with a migraine or something. I don't want to.
It'd be a happy migraine.
Is there such a thing? Hey, listen, did you have a first dance? You're married, aren't you? What was your first dance?
Embraceable You.
Who's that by?
Numerous people have done it.
Oh, okay.
It's a classic.
Oh, is it? It's a classic that I've missed.
You're too young, yeah.
Well, God bless you for that. Was it easy for you and your husband to decide that's what you're going to do? Were there a few arguments, a little bit of bargaining to get that?
We came up with a list, and then that we thought would be the one to pick because, we're a bit sort of soppy, I suppose.
There's nothing wrong being soppy. I like soppy. Estelle, listen, thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Fascinating. That last one, The Light Show, is at the Hayward Gallery on the South Bank. Very nice to see you. Thank you for that. Right, if you want to give us a call, the phone number 0207 224 2000. We're asking, what was your first dance? And was there any controversy when you picked it? I'm going to play mine after 1 o'clock. But before that, here's Diana Ross, My Old Piano. Hello, this is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9. Coming up after 1 o'clock, I'm very excited. I get to do a cover to cover, and I've chosen a song myself. It's God Only Knows. The famous Beach Boys song. Version 1 is by the Beach Boys. Version 2 is by Petra Haden. Her version is incredible. It's completely Acapulco. She does all of the sounds herself. She's like a kind of a slightly more cerebral Bobby McFerrin, if you can imagine such a thing. And I'd be keen to get your thoughts. I've known the Beach Boys version for so many years. The Petra Hader version, kind of a little bit newer to me. Keen to know what you think. We'll be discussing that and a whole lot more. But first of all, let's get the travel news now. Here's Pippa Sparks.
BBC London 94.9.
London's news.
London stories.
Hello, this is Iain Lee, in for Robert Elms on BBC London 94.9. Now, this is the bit I'm very excited about, cover to cover. I genuinely love this bit, and I got a little text last night saying, have you got your songs for cover to cover? Oh, I rubbed my hands with glee. Being the musical geek and the musical magpie that I am, I thought, oh, have I? Which ones do I pick? So, I picked a song that is incredibly significant to me. I've always thought it's one of the most beautiful songs in the world. It's a masterpiece, okay? And the first version we're going to play, the original version, was the first dance at my wedding, and so it's got that whole significance and that the whole connection to that. So let's start off with the first version, the original version, and you will know this song, and you will have heard this song 1,000 times before. I'm going to ask you now, listen to it with fresh ears, pretend you've never heard this song before, and just marvel at the intricacy. It's the Beach Boys, and God Only Knows. Just listen to that ending. Wonderful! I saw Brian Wilson. I've seen Brian Wilson live several times. I have to confess, I'm a huge Beach Boys fanatic. And I saw Brian Wilson playing a theatre somewhere in London. I can't remember what theatre it was. He played that song, and the whole audience stood up and sang it back to him for 3 minutes. Just that chorus. It was a wonderful moment. Such a good song. I think, have I got this right, Beach Boys geeks? I think it took him 15 minutes to write that. I know. I think so. Anyway, listen, that's the version you've heard 1,000 times before. Now, this is a version that I first heard, I don't know, about 4 years ago. And when someone mentioned it to me, I thought, yeah, that sounds gimmicky, that sounds cute, it won't be any good. I was wrong. It's by a lady called Petra Hader. She's done the entire God Only Knows a cappella, with her doing all of the vocals. Everything you're going to hear now, including this weird background bit that sounds like an instrument, it all comes from her mouth. Have a listen to this. God Only Knows, Petra Hader. Right, London, it's up to you. You've heard them both. I think they're both stunning versions. I mean, it's a great song. It's a really good song. You'd be hard-pushed to do a bad cover version of that, although David Bowie had a really good attempt. 0207 224 2000. 0207 224 2000. It's over to you. Which of those do you prefer? It's a very simple question. 0204 224 2000. You can also text 81333. Start your text with the word London. Robert's from Beckton. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Ian. The young lady had a lovely attempt at it, and being a sort of pretty-fied attempt at it, but I think you probably deliberately, you picked on the most perfect pop song that there is. Not necessarily the most beautiful, my favourite, but the most perfect pop song. It's the best pop song that I think that's ever been done. And you have to have a voice where you have the instrumentation contrasting with it, the crescendos of the voices, the harmonies of the voices. And although she does a pretty-fied attempt at it, but she's going to be limited by her vocal range and what she can do with her talents there. But no, I think the Beach Boys song is the best song ever done, and I don't think you can beat that, really, no matter what you do.
The Beach Boys version of God Only Knows is a classic, and I do think you're right. I don't know if it's necessarily the best pop song of all time. It's certainly in the top 5. It's wonderful, it's majestic, it's slightly spiritual. I think as well, it was the first ever pop song to have the word God in, and the record company were really anxious that the Beach Boys were going to lose it by putting the word God in a title, because it would scare.
Brave of them, wasn't it?
At the time, it was. Look how things have changed. But yes, at the time, it was very brave. Do you not think, though, that Petra Haden's version, it's interesting that she is taking a song by a group that are famous for their vocals and stripping it down to vocals? It kind of makes it a bit naked.
It does. I think it's clever and it's braver to attempt it, I think. But, I think with the song that it is, with so many contrasting parts to it, the contrast of the voices with the orchestration, it was cleverer to do that. If she's got that skill with her voice to be able to do that, I suppose it was wise of her to pick on that song. But I mean, she can't better it, really, can she? Let's face it, you know.
Robert, listen, thank you very much indeed. Robert from Beckton is going for the Beach Boys version. I should say, Petra Hayden is fascinating. She did, she does odd choices. I know she's got a new album out where she does movie themes, including the theme tune from Tootsie and also the Superman theme tune. I know. She's also reworked the entire The Who Sell Out album. A cappella. I know. I don't think it works quite as well as this Beach Boys song. There are some brilliant tracks on there, and I did toy with the idea of playing her version of I Can See for Miles or Tattoo from The Who Sell Out. But I think this is pretty darn good. 0207 224 2000 is the telephone number. What do you think? There is always the danger with a song like God Only Knows, and Robert there saying it's the best pop song of all time. I don't think it is. I think Daydream Believer is the best pop song of all time. There is a danger. It's a song you know so well that you dismiss it because it kind of becomes wallpaper. You've heard it so many times before. Let's have a little recap. These are the two songs we're talking about. It's God Only Knows. We'll start off with the Beach Boys version.
I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it.
So that's the Beach Boys version. That's the song we've all grown up, we've known and loved. Have a listen to this. This is Petra Hayden, completely a cappella, a one-woman masterpiece.
I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it.
See, when I decided to do this song, and I was choosing this song yesterday, I did listen to this version about 8 times in a row in the car, because it just, every time you hear it, something else just pops up. Her doing the... I'm trying to do it. She's doing the percussive bits with her mouth. I'm hoping it's her mouth anyway, for goodness sakes. 0207 224 2000. Gary from Catford. Hello, Catford.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
What did you make of those two versions?
Well, as much as the song is fantastic, as you quite rightly say, her version is a little bit Flying Pickets.
Well, the Flying Pickets... I do remember the Flying Pickets. Of course, they were very famous in the 80s. They did... what was the big hit the Flying Pickets did?
I know it went da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't remember the name of it.
Looking from a window above. They did... That was the Yazoo song, didn't they? Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah. What was it called? Only You, that was it. I'm Nathan, who is helping me out here today. It was Only You. But is that a problem? I always marvel at the intricacies of a cappella songs like that.
But whilst it's very clever, and as you say, very technically good, she could never sing that live, because she could only do the voice live. Obviously, she couldn't do all the bits of it anywhere else.
Yes.
And I just find I don't know that she's a really great singer. I think it's a better song than she is singer.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And listen, I've heard the Beach Boys do that version, that song pretty ropey a few times in their darker days in the 80s. But yes, she isn't the best singer in the world. And Carl Wilson, who sings the lead on the Beach Boys version, has an amazingly sweet voice. One of the purest voices in pop there ever was. But do you not sit back and marvel at the technical... How could you possibly deconstruct that song and recreate it just vocally? That takes some skill.
She's got to have some great imagination, as you say, to sit there and go, do you know what, I could sit there and do all those different bits. She must be incredibly imaginative and talented musically. I just think, I don't know, and I agree with the last caller, maybe the song is just too big for you to really sit back and go, it's anywhere close to the original. And maybe that's always a problem when you do a cover version like that.
Gatford, thank you. Okay, I've cut him off mid-flow. Sorry, Gatford, I do apologise. 0207 224 2000. Well, the Beach Boys seem to be winning hands down. And listen, no one can deny. Or maybe you can. Maybe I was going to say no one can deny it's one of the best songs of all time. Maybe you can. Maybe you're one of these people going, oh, for goodness sakes, can we stop dwelling on the God Only Knows? It's overrated tosh. If you think that, I'd love to hear from you. today. We've got another 10 minutes or so on this. 0207 224 2000. We're comparing the Beach Boys version of God Only Knows from Pet Sounds, a wonderful album that was a flop in the States, massive over here, but it kind of killed the it kind of killed the Beach Boys' career in the States, really. Versus the Petra Hader version. Is there anybody listening to this right now? I could end that sentence there and it would still be valid. But no, is there anybody listening to this right now who preferred the newer version? I don't want this to be a landslide in favour of the Beach Boys. Is there anybody going, well, actually, do you know what? Yeah, that Petra Haden a cappella version was marvellous. It sends shivers down my spine, her version. And I'm wondering, is it just because of the technical skill? You know, the thought that's gone into it. 0207 224 2000. Wayne's from Buckhurst Hill. Hello, Wayne.
Hello there.
Wayne, what are you going to... Is this another vote for the Beach Boys?
Well, yeah, I hate the song. It's probably the most annoying track on Pet Sounds.
Whoa, hang on a second, Wayne. Whoa, before I ask you to step outside for a punch-up, you don't like the song?
No, I'd love her to sing, wouldn't it be nice?
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
But she's a bit of Maria McCabe, as you said, Bobby McFadden. I think it would be better if she'd have recorded something less commercial.
Okay.
The trouble is with the song, it's so familiar, over-familiar.
Yep.
And it's more or less their benchmark. And although I hate the song, and it's probably the frailty of the album, it's become almost... You mustn't say you don't like the song.
Mm.
But I think she's had a good attempt. Nice little bit of self-indulgency on her part.
Do you think it's showing off a little bit? Going, look what I can do, everybody.
Yeah, you said it.
Yeah.
But as I say, I actually think that it would be great if she'd attempted a different song on the album.
Do you really think that God Only Knows is the weak point on the album?
Most definitely.
Because I think the two... I love the Beach Boys, but I think the two instrumental tracks, and also I know there's an answer.
I prefer the instrumental tracks to that.
Isn't that interesting?
It's a real downer. It's probably one of the most depressing kind of Phil Spector kind of copy. Gold Star Records, where they recorded it, they had all the equipment in the world. It's like a big cream cake. What do we do? And that's the difference. The girls' version, probably I prefer the Beach Boys because I'm more familiar with it, but whatever the girls are, I've never heard of her, actually.
She's good. Petra Haden, she is excellent. So, but you find that song depressing. That was the first dance we had at my wedding.
Therefore, a song that's depressing...
Yeah.
And annoying has become even more annoying and depressing. Unfortunately, it'd be great to have heard her do something else. I must look into her other work.
Try and find I Can See for Miles by The Who, because she does a cracking version of that. Wayne, listen, thank you very much indeed. Well, Wayne finds that song the weak point on the whole Pet Sounds album. Wow, I would say... Pet Sounds is great. I think it's slightly overrated. I think the Beach Boys have done better albums. Sunflower, anybody? Surf's Up? Listen, we're talking about God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. Let's have a listen to the Beach Boys version again. Here's a little snatch. Oh, we'll get that up in a second. Just to remind you, it's the Beach Boys versus Petra Haden. Let's have a little listen to the Beach Boys again.
I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure.
So that's the famous version, the version that our last caller, he hates the song. I'm mortified. This is what it's up against. A completely a cappella. This is Petra Haden, a singer from New York.
I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to.
I realise I could be flogging the proverbial here. I really want... We've got another 4 or 5 minutes on this. I would love someone to give me a call, 0207 224 2000, who prefers that last version. The more I listen to it, the more I'm kind of thinking, well, actually... I think perhaps I do prefer it. What she's done is so clever. Maybe it's too clever. Do you think it is a little bit of, you know, she's kind of showing off. I think she did it because someone challenged her to do it. Said, I bet you can't do that, Petra. And she went, all right, yeah, give us a few days. It may have taken a little bit longer than a few days. 0207 224 2000. But bearing in mind, the Beach Boys version was the first dance at my wedding. Jeff's from Farnborough. Hello, Jeff.
Oh, God, I've forgotten your name.
Jeff, don't worry, it's Ian. My mum barely remembers it these days, so don't worry.
I just think you picked the wrong record. Too many good versions. Well, the Beach Boys version is just definitive. Can't agree with Wayne in Buckhurst Hill, but it could be said to be a bit depressing. Isn't
that interesting, Jeff? Because I can't agree with Wayne at all. But for me, this song isn't depressing. It isn't bleak. It's joyous. It's uplifting. It's a wonderful celebration of life and love.
Yeah. But I mean, it's almost like a studio gimmick record. What she's done with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it doesn't add anything to the song. She hasn't changed the time. She's just more or less tried to say, look, I can do what the Beach Boys do without adding anything to it.
Jeff, is it one of those songs that you just shouldn't touch? You should leave well alone because the original version is so perfect?
No, I think you can have a go at it, but change it. Move things around, change the time, do something with it.
Add
something to it.
Have you heard the David Bowie version?
Not familiar with it.
No, he had a go. It's flipping awful. He tried to, well, he Bowified it, and to be honest, I think he absolutely ruined it. He made it into a real stinker. But listen, you're right. I can't agree with that last caller. The Pet Sounds. It's one of the worst songs on Pet Sounds, Jeff. That's heresy, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's not the worst.
No, and do you agree? I think Pet Sounds. I think it's a cracking record.
It's a cracking record.
It's a little bit overrated, though, isn't it?
Pet Sounds sort of came along and it was absolutely brilliant, and then a lot of it sounds very dated, and not. It hasn't stood the time very well. It's almost like Brian Wilson went through every type of American music on there, doo-wop, and then added bits that he could do.
Jeff, thank you very much indeed. Listen, I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. I've always thought Pet Sounds is wonderful. It's a cracking record. Of course it is. It's superb. But I don't think it's the Beach Boys. I don't think it's their strongest. I thoroughly recommend you go and check out Sunflower, which for me is the great lost Beach Boys record. It's a wonderful thing. Well, there we go. We struggled and we failed. Couldn't find one caller that preferred the Petra Haden version. So I think we have to say, hands down, it's the Beach Boys version. I did toy with bringing in the David Bowie cover of God Only Knows. It's a stinker. It's a real stinker. Lots of you have been texting in as well. The reason I chose that song is because it was my first dance at my wedding. I've been asking, what was your first dance at your wedding? Was there any controversy? My mother-in-law, when we suggested that song, she went, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Googled the lyrics and came back and went, oh, no. You can't play that. The first line, I may not always love you. We went with it in the end. Anyway, Paul has texted in, after an up-and-down romance, my cousin's wedding first dance was ever falling in love with someone you shouldn't have fallen in love with by the Buzzcocks. Really? Luckily, 3 years hence, they are totally happy. Ian, the first song played on our wedding night was Marvin's Let's Get It On. Oh dear, it's sexy. It's a sexy song, isn't it? It's a raunchy song. Jolly good time was had by all. That's Robert from Beckton. And Jill from Wallington here. My friend's first song at her wedding was I Love You Best When You Say Nothing At All, Boyzone. It was her favourite record, but her husband picked it, and it went down like a lead balloon. First row. Oh, dear. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text, London. You can give me a call, 0207 224 2000. Coming up after the news, Mark Corbett-Weaver, the CEO of the London Firebird Orchestra, here to tell me all about the orchestra and what they're up to. This is Iain Lee on BBC London 94.9. Hello, dear listener. This is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9, filling in for Robert Elms here until 3 o'clock. Lots coming up between now and 3 o'clock, including my next guest, who's Mark Corbett-Weaver, the artistic director and CEO of the London Firebird Orchestra. Hello, Mark.
Hello there.
Whenever I see CEO, I expect like an old man to come shuffling in, and you're very young. You're so young.
Absolutely. The orchestra is also very young, in terms of its age, and also in terms of, the age of the players themselves as well. We started last year in March 2012,
right.
And we've had a really exciting first year. In fact, one of the reasons I'm talking to you today, of course, is our concert at the Royal Festival Hall, which is taking place on Monday, April Fool's Day, at 4:00, which is a comedy concert. Actually, just after we founded the orchestra last year in March, in April, we were invited to give a similar concert, which took place at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and that was also in collaboration with the wonderful comedian conductor Rainer Hirsch.
Rainer Hirsch is wonderful. You said something there that after we founded the orchestra. How do you found an orchestra? That seems like, so I struggle to get a band together, to play some songs in a pub. How do you found an orchestra?
With a mission, I think, probably, particularly as there are so many orchestras all over the world. It's important that the orchestra has a strong mission and a clear voice. Both myself and my partner Akim Holub, who is the orchestra's principal conductor, have set up orchestras in the past. So with this particular orchestra, we had a very clear view of what we wanted to do, which is really all about young musicians. If you think about many of the professions that we have today, medicine, law, etc., you don't suddenly become a surgeon or a leading barrister or anything like that. There's but there is a clear journey to that point. And I think what we really feel about the music profession is, there are many clear journeys to many points, but they really are quite challenging, and the path that one can follow is not immediately obvious. So we think it's important that there are young orchestras for the most gifted young musicians that there are around.
How young are these people in the orchestra?
College leavers, just leaving the places like the Royal Academy, the Royal College of Music, Guildhall, Trinity, and international places as well. There are lots of young musicians come to London, I suppose, because the music scene here is so huge that people are attracted to come to London.
But these places you're saying, they're good musicians, because some people might think, young orchestra could be a little bit ropey. These are properly well-trained people.
The most gifted, but I mean, if you think of, to make the comparison again with medicine and law, I mean, you wouldn't suddenly be let loose on, someone's heart or lungs or something, would you? I mean, obviously there are, lots and lots of superstars out there that are lucky enough to immediately be invited to play in something like the London Symphony Orchestra, but I think it's quite rare. And so the question everyone has, which I'm sure everyone can understand really, is what do you do as soon as you leave music college? And we feel that there should be orchestras for people as they leave music college.
So how do you recruit these people?
It's a small world. It's a very exciting world. I mean, I was at the Royal College myself. I was a pianist at the RCM a few years ago. So, and the world that we operate in, everybody knows everybody, I suppose, like in other similar arts professions. So, we audition. We're always looking for the best, the most talented that we can. People come to us and say, look, we've heard wonderful things about the orchestra. We'd like to play. It operates like that at the moment, in that we're very young and we've still got a long way to go.
I would imagine it's difficult. You've got young people playing in the orchestra. Do you have young people coming to see you? Because there is still kind of this slightly misplaced snobbery about classical music, that young people don't seem to be that interested in it.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we're trying to break down, and I think the concert on Monday is very much about that. It's if you fuse classical music with comedy, which is what we're doing on Monday, then you say something to everybody, because you're sending up the musical world in a complimentary way often, which is always a wonderful thing to do. You're also embracing the fact that classical music is absolutely all around us, on the television, the background music to films, etc., and many, many other ways. Advertisements obviously being the obvious thing. You're also talking in a language which everybody can understand. understand, that being comedy, so everyone can get something out of it. And for those that aren't perhaps necessarily immediately interested in classical music, you've got a new way in there.
So how are you fusing comedy with classical music and presenting it in a way, because again there is this incorrect thing, classical music, it's just for middle class, upper class people. How are you kind of expanding on that?
Well, it's very much Rainer's concept, Rainer Hirsch, who is...
Just explain Rainer Hirsch for those who don't know.
Absolutely.
Who he is, and he's
Rainer
wonderful.
is the biggest thing in classical music and comedy. This wonderful artistic movement we've got at the moment. Rainer is the leading voice in that, I think, really. He's hosting the show on Monday afternoon at the Royal Festival Hall.
This is the April Fool's Day comedy concert.
Absolutely, the April Fool's Day comedy concert, which is a similar thing to what we did last year. I mean, we've got a bit of an annual thing going on. We did it at the Queen Elizabeth Hall last year, which of course is slightly smaller than the Royal Festival Hall. That sold out. Over 900 people came, which was fantastic. Now we're doing it at the Royal Festival Hall. Rainer is a comedian, but he's also a classical musician as well. So he's a stand-up comedian who's also a pianist and conductor. You ask how this is done. It's done in a range of different ways. He sends up classical music itself. He also plays on stereotypes, I suppose, and breaks down barriers there, which is incredibly funny to see. I mean, it's hysterically funny last year. I mean, people were almost literally rolling in the aisles. So we're all very excited about it. The other thing that this does, though, is it's also very attractive to children. It's not directly targeted at children. It's very much a universal concept, but children get a lot out of it. And it's very suitable for children. And that is really important too, because, and that you touch on, with our young orchestra, we think it's extremely important to be looking for the next generation of young musicians. So what we're doing with this is very much doing that, is inspiring young people, children, through comedy, to be perhaps interested in the musical world.
You're right. I've got two boys, 3 and 1, and I took my 3-year-old to see a concert at the Royal Festival. I think it was the London Philharmonic, who do kids' concerts, and he was a bit terrified going into this huge arena. But for him to see, we've always thought it was really important from a young age, for him to see live music being made, not just coming out of a little black box, music being made and being made by an orchestra, it blew his tiny mind, seeing all of this and hearing this huge noise. And it is, I think it's interesting you're saying you're trying to get kids to come along as well and teach them there is nothing to be afraid of with classical music. There is nothing to be afraid of the orchestra, that it's a wonderful thing that everyone can share with.
It's almost the opposite of being afraid, actually, because, I mean, playing in an orchestra is a collaborative, friendly thing to do. Everybody is playing together, making talking in one of the most wonderful languages that there is on the planet, that being music. And classical music, I think, is a terrible word, because it doesn't really mean anything. Yeah. It's just the word that we use to describe music that can be anything, music that can express anything at all, and therefore it's a central art form, really, and that's why it's so much. I mean, could you imagine a world without music? So therefore, I think that children really must be inspired to see music. What we're doing with Firebird, of course, is two things. Firstly, the orchestra is young in terms of its age, and therefore, that these people are not tremendously older than the children who are watching them, which of course is a great thing, and then also with the comedy as well, attracting people through comedy.
Mark, listen, look, tea and coffee's arrived. I suggest that we take a little break. We'll play a song, we'll come back, we'll discuss more about the orchestra and more about the concert that's happening and give out the details. Here's the Pretenders. Hello, this is Iain Lee, filling in for Robert Elms, BBC London 94.9. If you want to take part at any point in the show, by the way, feel free to. If you want to join in any of the conversations I'm having, 0207 224 2000 is the telephone number. It'd be nice to talk to you. Or you can send me a cheeky text, 81333. Start your text with the word London. I'm joined now by Mark Corbett-Weaver, Artistic Director of the London Firebird Orchestra. It's an orchestra, Mark, you're saying, for younger people, to kind of to give them a break in show business. Where did the name Firebird come from? Is that significant in any way?
Absolutely.
You've got a smirk on your face. It's not something dirty, is it? I don't want any dirty stories on here.
I mean, there are so many orchestras, as I was saying before, all over the world. We have a special orchestra and we wanted to give it a special name. We love the name Firebird. It conjures up, the idea of energy and passion and fire and all sorts of things, and also progression as well, which is very much a concept that the orchestra is very much about. Also, it's an unusual name. One of our recent reviews described as the oddly named London Firebird Orchestra, which I absolutely love because it's not a name that you would forget.
Yep.
And we're nicknaming it Firebird as well. So,
are there in the orchestra? Are there cliques? I mean, do the violinists look down on percussion? Is there anything like that? Any little rivalries within an orchestra?
Absolutely, all sorts of wonderful cliques,
good.
All sorts of little relationships kicking in, and I mean that's one of the wonderful things about young people, isn't it? Really, so different people working together in different ways. Everybody gets on wonderfully. I mean, it's a really great band of players, and we're all really looking forward to our first concert at the Royal Festival Hall, which is taking place at 4:00 on Monday afternoon.
This is the April Fool's Day comedy concert.
Absolutely.
I introduced the London Philharmonic. It was one of them. I think it was them at the Royal Festival Hall. I made the mistake of saying this is one of the best bands I've worked with. They don't like being called a band. Don't call them a band. They get very snooty.
Oh, okay. I'll try not to.
They get very snooty. So this is happening. This is in aid of the Musicians' Benevolent Fund. It's a great lineup you've got there. The Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain, who really have been, they've kind of made, they've reinvigorated the ukulele, haven't they?
Okay, another wonderfully unusual concept, and incredibly successful.
Have you seen them before?
I've never worked with them before.
They're
I've seen them before. Really looking forward to. I haven't actually met any of them yet, but we're starting rehearsals on Saturday,
right?
In central London, and we're really excited.
They're brilliant. I love them. Alistair McGowan. What's Alistair McGowan going to do?
Alistair is also a wonderful comedian and a very talented vocalist, and of course we've also got Marc-Andre as well, Marc-Andre Hamlin, who will be joining us as well as a further guest. He's also a comedian and pianist, so treats all round really.
So are you on stage for the whole concert? Are you?
The orchestra is largely on stage.
House band,
yes, the house band, to use that term again. Yeah, yes. So you're fusing all sorts of different things here. Really, comedy being the operative one, of course. And then Firebird is looking forward to its next concert, which takes place at St Paul's Covent Garden on the 17th of April. And for that, we're welcoming a sort of bit of a success story, really. Alexei Kozelyev, a very, very talented cellist who we all celebrate hugely because he's just for about a year and a bit now been the principal cellist of the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. So there you've got a young musician who's really made it, and everybody really loves him.
I don't like cellists. I'll tell you why I don't like cello. No, I'll tell you why. Because I used to play the cello as a kid at school, and of course, when I got to 12 years old and went to grammar school, they said, well, you can carry on having cello lessons, but you'll have to give up your lunch breaks. I went, yeah, get out of town. That's never happening. One of the biggest mistakes of my life was giving. I wish my parents had forced me to carry on learning and playing the cello, because it's such an amazing sounding instrument, and when it's played well, the cello is just incredible, I think.
Absolutely, and Alexei's playing the Dvorak Cello Concerto at St Paul's Covent Garden with us on the 17th of April. Full details of that concert are viewable on our website, which is firebirdorchestra.com.
Very good.
If people want to come to that, we'd be delighted to have them there.
You know that I'm going to ask a question that's going to make me sound like an idiot, but I don't mind doing that, Mark, because I'm sure you know the conductor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do they really do anything? Could the orchestra function without the conductor?
Well, which is one of the many things that can be sent up in a comedy concert, I suppose, is the role of different things in classical music. Yeah. A conductor's obviously hugely important, drives the passion of the orchestra, is the interpretational head of...
Can an orchestra sound different with a different conductor in front of them?
Totally and utterly.
Really?
Yeah. Which is interesting to see, actually, in many ways. I mean, our principal conductor, Akim Holub, who co-founded the orchestra with me, has a very distinctive style. He's Austrian, has a great...
What sets him apart? What's his style? What's so unique about his conducting skills?
Well, he embraces the classical era hugely. I suppose being Austrian... wonderful interpretations of Mozart and Beethoven. Great passion, huge connection with the orchestra, a wonderful, inspiring heart, which I think comes across hugely in performance. And also and this is what is exciting about an orchestra like Firebird, is that you can take risks. Because it's not, it's slightly more relaxed in terms of its setting. So, and that is, one of the exciting things about music, where you've got something live, you can do things differently. You can live on the edge of the moment in a way.
Mark, very quickly, the April Fool's Day comedy concert, it's Monday, April the 1st, 4 p.m, Royal Festival Hall. What pieces of music will you be playing? Will the orchestra be playing?
Well, there's a huge amount of repertoire involved with the performance, actually. Things that people will recognise, things that people won't recognise. Glinka's wonderful overture to Rosalind and Ludmilla, for example, which is a wonderful, wonderful piece. The thing about this, of course, is it's not really about the repertoire, because there's so much of repertoire being played, perhaps 30 pieces of music, but short pieces. It's really about what we're saying through the concert, which is so different and so exciting.
Give us the website again for the orchestra, please.
www.firebirdorchestra.com. Everything about us is on that website. And tickets for the concert on Monday are available from the South Bank website, but they are going fast, and last year's concert did sell out, so hurry. We'd love to see you there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in. It's always wonderful, inspiring to talk to people who are so passionate about what they do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark. Right. Here's a little bit of Steve Miller. 0207 224 2000. Speak to you after this. Hello, this is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9. Coming up after 2 o'clock, we'll be speaking to film critic Anna Smith about trance, good vibrations, and 1 mile away. Looking forward to finding out about those, trance in particular. But before that, let's get the latest travel now with Pippa Sparks. Hello, this is Iain Lee, filling in for Robert Elms on BBC London 94.9. If you want to take part in the show, and we are asking today, after I played God Only Knows, which was my first dance at my wedding, which songs did you choose as your first dance? Which song did you choose? And was there any kind of tension? My mother-in-law was furious that I chose God Only Knows, because the first line is, I may not always love you. She thought it was slightly portentous. You can get in touch on the phone, 0207 224 2000, or you can send a text, 81333. Start your text with London. A few people have been in touch. Gavin from Greenwich. My first dance at my wedding was Betcha by Golly Wow by Prince. Not my choice, but very little in our relationship has been my choice since. Oh, Gavin, that's disappointing. Get out while you still can. And Kerry says, our first dance was the classic Dirty Dancing. I've had the time of my life. We're still living up to the song and very much in love. Isn't that romantic? Because I'll be honest, a few weeks into the marriage, the romance goes. I don't want to be all cynical, but it does. I'm joined now by film critic Anna Smith. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
This is actually, we're discussing this. This is your job. You get paid to go and watch films and then talk about them.
That is what I do. I write sometimes as well. Write and talk about films.
How awesome is that?
It is very awesome, I have to say. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Can you introduce me to, I wouldn't mind being in on this.
Well, I don't want you to see my job, that's the only thing. Maybe I could just sit to chatting to you about it. Would that be all right?
That's a little bit unfair. Okay, what have we got first? Trance, I think.
Trance, yes. This is Danny Boyle's new film.
Yes.
Starring James McAvoy as the guy who works in an art auction house. And he is part of a heist that goes wrong, ends up with a big bump on the head, ends up in a coma, wakes up, can't remember where the stolen painting is. Cue big problem, because these gangsters, led by Vincent Cassel, the great French actor, want to get the truth out of him and are torturing him to try and find out.
I saw the trailer for this before the latest masterpiece by Bruce Willis, the new Die Hard film.
Yes.
We had a big argument. We're not going to carry this argument on air, but I think you're wrong. I think the new Die Hard film is a masterpiece. It's definitely one of the best.
We're never going to agree on this, are we?
We're not going to agree.
No. But you saw the trailer. Yeah. Moving on.
There's a tension. There is a tension in the air. We have completely nothing in common when it comes to films. I saw the trailer for Trance, and I like Danny Boyle.
Yes.
But I just thought, someone's had a bump on the head and has forgotten where the picture is, and then they get hypnotised, and then it's... am I right in thinking that a lot of this film is about, because he's hypnotised... Mm-hmm. We don't quite know what's actually happening and what's imagined.
Truth, reality, blurred. Rosario Dawson is great as this Harley Street hypnotist who is brought in to try and help get the truth out of him. But what's interesting, it's not just about hypnosis, it's about the dynamic between this woman and the criminals and James McAvoy's character Simon. So you've got all these dynamics going on, sexual dynamics, everything to do with power games, power play, cat and mouse games. So it is a genuine thriller. It moves from being a heist thriller into a psychological thriller. And yes, you are a bit confused at points, as the name indicates, as as to what is happening and what is reality. She puts him under a trance. Are we part of that trance? Are we experiencing that trance? Are we seeing it objectively, subjectively? I kind of like that because I like that psychological thing, and I'm also a fan of Derren Brown and all that kind of, that hypnosis and everything.
Okay, without giving away the ending, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get the answer at the end? Because I don't like films where you come out scratching your head going, well, I'm not sure. It's like Inception. I liked Inception, but the ending, they didn't give me a clear-cut ending.
I'm going to be absolutely honest, you're not going to like this film. Some people will, but you are not, because I was awake that night for a long time trying to work out what happened, and sometimes I thought, okay, that was brilliant, that was a stroke of brilliance, and other times I'm thinking, hang on, that didn't add up, I'm not sure, but it gets you thinking, and I enjoyed that. It's good for sort of post-cinema pub chat. I don't
go to the cinema to think.
Well, then don't go see Trance. But everyone else, go see Trance.
And also, another thing that frustrates me about this, I've not even seen it, listen how rude am I dissing a whole man's work, is I used to be a hypnotist. I used to do stage hypnosis. Don't look into my eyes.
I did not know that.
No, this is true. I worked for Paul McKenna.
I'm very suggestible, so...
well, okay. Good for you. And I did used to be a hypnotist. And I know kind of what the rules of hypnosis are. I know that when you're hypnotised, you kind of know what's going on, and it's all a little bit. You're kind of in a deal with the hypnotist, and you're a little bit compliant, but you don't ever black out, and you're not in some weird fantasy world. So I would imagine that this isn't grounded in reality for me.
I'm sure that's the truth. I was thinking that earlier. Every film I watch about a journalist or a film critic, I think, no, that's not realistic. And hypnotists probably would watch this and pick it to pieces. But as someone that only has a sort of amateurish interest, I enjoyed it. But you're probably right. Yeah.
What was Danny Boyle's last film? It wasn't the 127 Hours.
Yes.
Was that the last one?
Yeah.
Because that I was kind of very claustrophobic and by the very nature of a man being trapped in between two rocks for 5 days or whatever it was, is very solitary. This film looked huge. It looks like a big blockbuster.
It starts off like a big blockbuster. It's very slick, all this running around, lots of action, heist scenes. It becomes much more insular and much smaller film because it becomes very much about Rosario Dawson's character and James McAvoy's character with a few kind of people on the side. So basically, it is not as epic as it might seem, but it's very interesting.
Is Danny Boyle going to be offered Bond? That's the rumour that's going around.
Well, there was talk of that, but I think he's sort of saying no, but I wouldn't like to quote him on that.
Is that not him just playing it cool? Surely every director
possibly,
would love to
yeah.
be.
It's like the actors that say, oh, well, I couldn't possibly comment,
Yeah.
But I do not know, I'm afraid. I cannot give you the scoop on that one. Okay. But it'd be good, though, don't you think? Danny Boyle, Bond?
I think it would be good. I do worry about Danny Boyle, I'm sure.
You worry frequently.
I do worry a lot. I watched, what was that early film he did? With the money, the stolen money.
Yeah, Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave. Yeah. It didn't stand the test of time.
Right.
It looked like a sort of early 90s student kind of film.
Well, it was one of his, it was a very early film.
Very early and great at the time. And I just wonder if his films are of a certain time.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, although Train Spotting stands up, I think.
Does it? I've not seen it for a while. Does that stand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's Trance. That's out now, is it?
Yes, it came out a couple of days ago. It came out on Wednesday, so you can watch it at this second.
You can go and see it. It's very, very... I'd wait until 3 o'clock. No, hang on, I'd wait. Wait. Good Vibrations.
Yes.
This isn't a biopic about Brian Wilson or the Beach Boys.
No, sadly not, but it is a biopic about Terry Hooley, the godfather of Belfast punk.
Who is Terry Hooley, for those who don't know?
He started the Good Vibrations record label, Good Vibrations shop in the 70s,
right.
To try and bring the Northern Irish sounds to the rest of the UK. And he found the undertones. He found Teenage Kicks. So that's how he got his really big break. And he became very much hailed in the local area. And this film, it's a lovely sort of low-budget film, but it's got a great heart. It's lots of enthusiasm, lots of great music. And the guy who plays him, Richard Dormer, is excellent. And it's just a sweet little story of a small-town guy taking on the big guys in the music industry and winning up to a point. It doesn't all go fantastically well because it's very hard for someone of that level to take on, the big, multinational corporations. But it's a cute film, and it's, as I say, it's a really good one for music fans.
So he started a record shop, and then he discovered the undertones.
Yeah, basically he started looking around, and he put on gigs. He was one of these multitasking kind of music fans that ended up sort of falling into it as a profession, but not making much money, not having much of a business head necessarily. But then he decided, hey, let's put some music out, and he started doing it. And then the undertones were one of the big hits that he managed to get, and of course John Peel playing them twice on the radio is what what made their name and then what made his name.
Well, in some ways, we have him to blame for the latest One Direction song, which is an awful mashup of Blondie and the Undertones. Have you heard that?
I'm happy to say I have not.
We'll find it and play it to you. I'll phone you up and play it to you down the phone.
Thanks.
Dylan Moran's in this film, isn't he?
Yes.
I love Dylan Moran. I think he's wonderful.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's some really good people, and Jodie Whittaker as well in a small role. Well, actually, a fairly large role as his wife. And what I felt about this film is actually where it falls down is when it goes into the characters and their relationships. It's a bit skimpy when it comes to the characterisation, so it's more about the fun and the atmosphere and showing how things were. But when it comes to the actual character of this guy, who's still alive, so sometimes it's quite hard to communicate that on screen, then you don't feel that you get to know him or get to understand his actions that well.
I wonder, when someone is still alive, does that person, do you think, I guess they have to be involved with the film, and the director and the actor playing them must...
They often are. I'm sure they were in this case.
Yeah.
No, they don't have to be involved, I'm sure, but you just have to be very careful legally, I think, what you say.
You would do it. I just think as a director and an actor, you would probably possibly hold back a little bit from the full-on...
I think that's
depiction.
a really valid point, and I think often I find what biopics, there's a problem with that, because they're a little nervous about offending the person if they're still alive, and even if they're not, their family, and, being respectful towards the dead, and sometimes I prefer a fictional film for those reasons.
You've not heard One Direction, have you? The Undertones, their latest hit. You can hear a little bit now.
Thanks.
One way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you one way or another.
What do you reckon?
It's a bit thin, isn't it?
Who'd have thought One Direction could be thin? It's a mashup between Blondie and the Undertones,
Yes.
and it's the weirdest. It's hey, it's for comic relief. Who am I to knock one of the biggest charities in the country? But it's flipping awful. So I think that's enough of that. I think we can
Thanks for
turn
sharing it, though.
that nonsense off. Is this film any good? If people who don't know the story of this gentleman, will they enjoy the film?
I think they'll enjoy it up to a point. It might drag a bit towards the end, but it's worth seeing if you're a music fan, and especially if you want to find out a little bit about music history.
So that's Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
Is that out now?
It is out tomorrow.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. Listen, Anna, stay there. We're going to have a record. We'll come back and we'll talk about 1 Mile Away, which I'm very interested in. Here's a bit of Natalie Imbruglia. Hello, this is Iain Lee, sitting in for Robert Elms on BBC London 94.9. If you want to give us a call, if there's any films that you've seen that you thoroughly recommend, do give me a call, 0207 224 2000. You can send me a text as well, 81333, excuse me. Start your text with the word London. I'm joined by film critic Anna Smith. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
You will just, listen, you will give me a little secret tip. You've worked out what my film interest is. I like big bangs, and I cannot lie.
Yes,
and I like them done well. What was that film you were just telling me about?
Olympus Has Fallen. It's a Gerard Butler film where he saves the White House. Can you imagine? That's got everything you could want if you're a fan of Die Hard.
Wonderful.
Explosions, Gerard Butler being very meaty, wandering around. It's kind of 24, the movie, in a weird sort of way. Maybe not as good as that would suggest.
When's this out?
I think it's out in a few weeks yet. Probably not even supposed to be talking about it.
That's
how exclusive it is.
Okay.
But I think it's one for you.
There's an umbongo on it. Now, 1 Mile Away. What's this?
This is a documentary, which is a very, very important documentary. It's set in Birmingham, made by a woman called Penny Wilcock, and it's about two rival gangs in Birmingham, which are basically, there's been years of violence just based on their postcodes. It's a census thing. There are the Burgers and the Johnsons based in...
What are these gangs? I was surprised they're called the Burger Bars, Burger Boys or something.
I know, yes, it's very, very weird name. Don't ask me why they're called that, but that, for many years they've been called that, and there has been a great deal of violence and deaths and fatalities. And this was actually fictionalised in a film that this director Penny Wilcock made a few years ago called One Day. And the great thing about this film, it had a real effect because it inspired people to come to Penny and say, we want to make peace. So this is a documentary about these two guys from different sides, completely different sides, who wouldn't normally talk to each other or be seen anywhere near each other, coming together in secret, filmed by Penny, trying to make it happen.
And they do have a secret kind of meeting, don't they, in a hotel room or something?
Yes, and it's all very awkward and weird because, they're not used to shaking hands, they can't really look each other in the eye, it's a very strange experience, and they wouldn't ever go to each other's areas for fear of death, And
people have died,
People have died, many people
have
died, and one of the limiting things about the film, but one of the interesting things about the film is that they can't show these guys in their own homes, they're filming on street corners, they're filming in hotels, in offices, in secret, for fear, sometimes of the police, but also sometimes of their own people. And it's it's at the beginning a very inspiring film because it's absolutely fantastic to see these guys say, look, we've seen what you put in this film, and also we're getting to a certain age where, we've lost so many of our friends, we can see this is completely pointless, but what can we do?
There's a shot with one of the lads by a few graves where it's his friends.
Very poignant. Very
incredible
poignant.
shot.
Yeah. And so they go out and they talk to young guys and they try to convince them, because there's all this kind of bravado in the young guys and perhaps they're not valuing life in the way they should do. So they're going talking to them and trying to convince them to make peace. But of course, it's a very, very difficult job. And you've just got a filmmaker and two guys essentially trying to make this happen. So over the course of the film, it does become a little bit repetitive and you do sort of have a lot of the same scenes and there's not much variation in locations. But what is interesting that the riots happen in the middle of all this when they're filming it. So it becomes a documentation of that as well. So, and they're taking this movie out to schools and things like that. So it's an important educational tool, and it's showing in places.
Does
in
it have
London
any
as well.
effect? Because I've only seen the trailer. I've read a few bits and pieces about this, but the people that are trying to the gang leaders, I don't know if that's the right term, that are trying to make peace, they're saying it's because we're getting a bit older, but then they're trying to tell the younger kids that this is what they should be doing, and there's always that generational gap where the young people don't want to listen to the older people. Do they have any influence on the younger people?
I think they do. I mean, what's good is that you, as the film progresses, you do see some of the younger guys coming through and perhaps rapping about it, making songs about it, understanding it a little bit better. So I agree, as you say, it is very much a generational thing in some ways, and wisdom comes with age, perhaps, and experience. But it's not one of those great happy ending films, because as we know, these things have not been solved altogether. But it is inspiring and it is thought-provoking, and it does have some effect. Definitely.
Does it give any indication of how, because this is just a completely alien culture to me, how these rivalries started?
It's a good question. They do talk about that, and they go back and they try to remember. But it's even though it's fairly recent, there's this kind of memories. It's just that these things have just grown up culturally, and it's really interesting to think that suddenly, people are like, well, you can't walk down there, otherwise you might get shot because so and so hates so and so. And it's
strange because it's that kind of thing you read about in the Daily Mail, gang warfare, and you think, it's kind of big. They're bigging it up a little bit too much to try and instill fear. But, kids, and they are kids, young people are dying, are being shot and murdered because of, as you say, rivalries they've forgotten where they originated from.
And what's good about this film is you're hearing that from the point of view of the people it directly involved, not from the Daily Mail. And you're hearing from people who've been in prison and who've lost their friends and been involved in dreadful things. So,
okay, so that's 1 mile away. And is that out now?
It's out tomorrow. Okay. And they've got some Q&As and stuff, I think, coming up on Monday as well. Hackney Pitch House.
Anna, listen, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming in. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Trance, Good Vibrations, 1 mile away. It sounds like they're all worth checking out at some point. Anna Smith, thank you. 0207 224 2000 is the telephone number. Who on earth is Bernadette, and why are the Four Tops so upset about her? Don't worry, lads, we'll try and find her. This is Iain Lee on BBC London 94.9. Coming up after the news, we'll be speaking to Josh West. Who he? I shall tell you after the news with Richard Main. Hello, this is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9, here till 3 o'clock, sitting in for Robert Elms. We're asking today, I keep going to say this morning, I have no idea why, I'm falling apart at the seams. We're asking today, what was your first dance at your wedding? Earlier on, we played God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, which is one of the most majestic pop songs of all time. It was the first dance at my wedding. It was quite controversial. I have to say, my mother-in-law, she went, oh yeah, that's a nice choice, went and Googled the lyrics and came back and went, no, you're not having that. Feisty Greek lady is Christina. No, you're not having that. And I kind of kicked up a stink. And we did have it. She objected to the line, I may not always love you. She didn't then go on to read that it's all about how the fact that you could never stop loving this person. But it caused controversy. So what was your first dance? Kate in the Burbs has texted in 81333, starting her text with the word London. We had an official first dance, Ella Fitzgerald, The Very Thought of You, for the Grands. And then we had a secret one, The Smiths, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, which was just as romantic, if non-gram friendly. Can you have two first dances? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. 0207 224 2000 81333. Start your text with the word London. What was your first dance, and was it controversial in any way? Hello, this is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9, here till 3 o'clock. Now, joined by a guest who, let's be honest, he's only just turned up. He was a little bit late. Josh West. Josh, is it true you were running down Regent Street trying to get here?
Yeah, absolutely. I got off the tube and I sprinted to the top of the stairs and carried on running.
You're here because you're a London bus driver. We really expecting you to be bang on time. And listen, it's good to have you here. You're not just any old London bus driver. You're going to be featuring in the toughest place to be. Which is now this series goes out on BBC Two.
That's correct.
It happened a year ago.
Just over 2.5 years.
2.5 years ago was the first one, and this is kind of a return. Explain what happened 2.5 years ago.
Initially, the BBC put out an advertisement for a bus driver, and it was nationwide. So we had people applying from Newcastle, Southampton, Liverpool, all over the country. I found out about it relatively late. Put my application form in.
But applying to do what? What did you think you were signing up for?
Well, what they said is for you to drive a bus or become a bus driver in one of the most densely populated places in the world. And they had India and they had the Philippines as a choice. In the end, they picked the Philippines. Lucky for me, I was chosen over sort of like 480 people.
What did you have that was different? Why did they pick you, do you think?
I've asked them that question myself. And they've said to me that I was able to ask a question, listen to the answer, and then carry on with the question. Another question, and it sort of like flowed into a normal conversation instead of me being fed lines all the time.
And you're a genuine bus driver. What route were you driving at the time?
At the time I was driving the 148 route, which goes from White City to Camberwell Green.
Lovely.
Since then things have changed. I'm no longer a bus driver, but I still work in the bus industry.
So you got the gig. They said, right, we're going to send you to the Philippines. Why are they sending you there?
Firstly, the Philippines, they have a vehicle called a jeepney, which is...
Called a what?
A jeepney.
Jeepney?
It's basically an old-fashioned Jeep like you would get in the A-Team or World War II films. And basically what the Filipinos have done, just spliced it in half, elongated it, put a roof on it, and made it into a bus. And that's what they use as their transport around, which is great ingenuity for them.
And it's used in the same way as a bus here. So do they have bus stops? Do people kind of flag it down and pay a fare?
It's more like the taxi system what we have over here, where people flag you down. But he has a general route where he goes along, and there are general spots where most people stop, and he looks out for them.
So you say here, you got paired up with a gentleman over there, didn't you?
Yeah, I got Rogelio. Rogelio is a great friend of mine now. We talk on a regular basis and contact each other on a regular basis. So, he's a good friend of mine.
What's the fella's name?
Rogelio.
And so how did it work the first time, 2.5 years ago? You got paired up with him and you did his job for a week, that kind of...
I was over there for about approximately 18 days, stayed at his house, lived in his conditions, did his work and lived his lifestyle. And I saw the Philippines from his point of view. Which was, again, for me, coming from London, very shocking because I hadn't travelled to Asia before, had no ideas what it's like, and seeing it from his point of view was a life-changing experience.
What was so different? What were the things that you kind of really noticed and shocked you?
The main things what shocked me is when I compared his job to my job. I get paid an hourly rate, which is union covered, and there's rules and regulation for me. Whereas he basically works for himself, and he has to pay out for every single thing. So he could work a whole day, and once he's paid out the whole amount of money what he pays out, he only has like £7 in English money left to feed his family and pay for medicines for his wife, who's not particularly well at the time.
And did you enjoy it? Was it such a huge shock? You're laughing now. I'm guessing maybe you didn't enjoy it.
I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it because I made a fantastic friend. Rogelio, even when the camera stopped filming, me and him talked and we became great friends. We call each other brother now, which is something which I don't do very often because I feel it's a special word, and I use him as my brother and I get advice from him and he does the same for me. So I really enjoyed spending time with him and his family and, immersing myself in the Filipino culture.
And what do you think you took away from that first visit 2.5 years ago? Did it change your outlook to your job as a bus driver?
I realised how privileged I was to do the job I do. And how we have a safety net in this country, whereas the Philippines, especially for Rogelio, if he doesn't work, he doesn't get fed. So I've realised that, I have to appreciate what I've got here. It made me a lot more appreciative of my lifestyle and my life over here and what I have over here. And because of that, I decided that I would help him out as well as much as I possibly could.
Okay, well, listen, you've gone back again. We'll talk about that in a second. But before that, let's have a bit of music. This is the James Hunter 6, One Way Love. I'll speak more to Josh West after this. This is Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9. I'm joined by Josh West. Josh, we're talking about this series. It's the toughest toughest place to be a bus driver. It's The Return. It's on Sunday, 9 p.m.
That's correct.
BBC Two. Very quickly, you went back to the Philippines. Why? What was the point of that?
I had done a few projects since leaving the Philippines to help out Rogelio and his family, which I'm hoping to expand on now off the back of this show. Basically what I did, he only ever asked me for one thing, and I said that I would do it for him, and that was to give his grandchildren a good education. So every year I do a sponsored run and to raise funds so that I can send his grandchildren to a private school over there so they can get a better education to get a better start in life.
Now, you were a bus driver, and I'm a huge fan of the bus. I love buses. I genuinely do. If I got a little bit of extra time and I'm travelling in London, I'll get the bus. Because you see stuff on the bus. You don't see anything on the tube. You don't see anything. It's tunnels. Oh, it's tunnels. It's weird people. On the bus, and if you sit on the top deck of the bus, you see high up on buildings that you don't see. If you're listening to this, dear listener, if you want to, we've only got 10 minutes left, but if you want to give us a call and share your bus stories, 0207 224 2000. But you're not a bus driver anymore.
No. I got promoted just after coming back, and it was nothing to do with the TV programme. I had applied before I went.
Yes.
And the one thing I did like about being a bus driver was exactly what you said. The bus route that I drove, which was the 148, went round Victoria, Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, London Eye. So it's fantastic for tourists, and we had a lot of tourists on there, and we saw the State Open of Parliament and that sort of stuff. It was fantastic. We really enjoyed it. But now I'm a bus service controller, which basically means I'm the person which tries to regulate the service.
I don't like you.
Yeah.
You're the guy that sits, you stand with the clipboard at the bus stop, my bus pulls up, is about to pull away, you come on and go, just stand there for 2 minutes. Why are you regulating the service, Josh?
I'll explain to you. There's an old saying what people say, I've been waiting half an hour for a bus and 3 turn up.
Yeah.
I'm the person that stops that from happening.
Right.
So if I didn't regulate that service, I'll have 3 buses running together. As much as a driver can do to keep to his time card or to the duty card, traffic conditions sometimes aren't able to do that. I am. So that's what I do. The reason being is, say for instance, you've got an appointment to get to, and you've got to be on that bus at 8:30, and that bus gets there 2 minutes early. The next waiting for the next bus might be 8 minutes late, and makes you late.
Yes.
So I have to regulate that for everyone along the route.
I'll try and curb my my hatred for you. Did you ever get any trouble as a bus driver? Because I often see people going mental with bus drivers. I mean, you're a big lad. People might not notice that when you're sat down. Did you ever get any trouble?
Me personally, no. As you said, I'm a big lad, but also I'm able to diffuse the situation. There are a lot of ways of diffusing the situation. First of all, eye contact, smiling at a person. You can't really hit someone who's smiling at you, or be abusive to someone who's smiling at you. So I tend to give them a friendly gesture and listen to their rant and then try and explain what's going on.
Do you get training on how to deal with tricky people? Or is it just you just know it's inherent in you?
Well,
as a person?
in me, you have to have a certain mindset to be a bus driver. Also, you have to be very skilled at your job because it's not easy weaving in and out of London roads. But you have to have a certain mindset to let them know it's about the job. It's not personal. This person has somewhere to get to, and they're not taking out on you. They're taking out on the fact that they need to get somewhere, and they feel that you've prevented them from doing that. It's not you personally. And don't take it personally.
Do you never feel, when I was a youngster getting on the buses, everyone would say, "Thank you, driver. Thank you, driver." People don't do that now. You're kind of, as a bus driver, you're kind of invisible to a lot of people.
Yeah, you become part of the bus. You become the bus. You don't become a person, which is a shame, really, because when I was growing up, like you said, you used to say good morning and goodbye. And when you go outside London, you still have that. But the hustle and bustle of London, it happens so fast. We have a route which runs at 3 minutes a time. There isn't time for that. You get someone and they're asking directions, and that bus is late. It's that tight. But, we managed to get through that. We managed to get the buses through on time as much as possible. So, there's a way around it.
What's the best thing that's ever happened to you on the buses? Do you have good stories about people kind of being nice, being kind?
I tell you what was a funny thing. There's several drivers who have my build, shape and colour, and after I did the first episode of the bus programme, a lot of people were getting on the 148 buses looking for me, and they were screaming, "Are you Josh the bus driver? You the bus driver?" That was one thing.
Bus driver groupies?
Yeah, that sort of thing. And I was actually service controlling on one of our routes, and I was, like you said, I was holding the bus for 2 minutes, and this guy started banging on the window, came downstairs and says, "Come here." And I thought, "Oh no, I'm in trouble now. What have I done? He's really going to let me have it." He goes, "I saw you in that TV programme. you did really well. And I went, oh, thank you very much. And he put his arm around my shoulder and he said to me, I cried with you as well, mate. I really did.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. What do you say to that?
What do you say to that?
Well, I just said, thank you very much. I didn't know what else to say.
Yeah.
What else do you say to that? Yeah.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? That you appearing on a TV show had that impact, and then. Have you ever got lost doing a bus route? I tell you what, my friend Captain John was a bus driver for a week. On his second time out, he got lost, and he couldn't work out how to get back, and he ended up in a really narrow cul-de-sac, and he had to say to everyone, "I'm really sorry, I'm lost. I can't turn the bus around. You'll all have to get off." Has that ever happened to you or any of your friends?
Once you know your route,
yeah.
Your friend Captain John obviously went off his route.
He went off route, yes.
If once you know your route, it's very rare that you get lost. There are times when you need a new diversion, when you're learning a new route and you're looking for a signpost to be turned. And someone who's quite bored might move the signpost and you'll miss your turning. And then you get lost, which is through no fault of your own. And there are safety features for that. We have protocols which are in action. And there's a code red facility which we call Centrecom, and they can guide us out. We can call our own base. They can tell us what to do and how to get out. So that really happens. What happened to your friend?
Do you think that maybe bus drivers have kind of lost their personal touch a little bit? Because the part of the reason they're seen as part of the bus is maybe their own fault, because you don't, apart from you and a few exceptions, you don't see as many characters as bus drivers as perhaps you got 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it, because I have interpersonal relationships with all the bus drivers in the garage, and I can understand that sometimes you wake up one morning and you end up having an off day, just like yourself and anybody else. And normally will you be smiling and happy, you might be off day, but people remember that off day. They won't remember when you've running for the bus and they've waited for you and you've got on the bus and then you just speak to a Coaster card and went and sat down without saying thank you. You're thinking like, well, what's the point if you're not going to say thank you? Which again could have a knock-on effect. I mean, bus drivers are human. They do make mistakes, and not every single bus driver is perfect.
Why do some drivers pull away when there's an old lady tapping on the door?
There is a rule, and it is a rule which bus drivers can, up to their own judgment. If the bus is shut, the door is shut, and he's proceeded to make his procedure to pull away from the stop, he's not looking on the left-hand side. He's looking on the right-hand side for the oncoming traffic. If he stops then, he could cause an accident. So sometimes it's better for him, or safer for him, on his decision to drive on. Again, it's not nice to be left at a bus stop, and I do realise that.
You're very diplomatic. I can see why people like you. Very quickly, so we've got to end. We're running out of time. You're moving house today.
That's right.
How on earth did you persuade your missus to let you get out of that most traumatic experience to come and do a radio interview, for goodness sakes?
My wife, loves me dearly.
She obviously does. Yeah. Josh, listen, it's lovely to talk to you. The show is the worst place to be a bus driver. Toughest place, sorry. It's on Sunday, 9 p.m, BBC Two. Thank you very much. Best of luck with the move as well.
Thank you.
Cheers, Josh. Well, thank you very much for listening, and everyone who took part. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I hope you had a little bit of fun as well. This has been Iain Lee, BBC London 94.9. Don't panic. Robert's back tomorrow. Stay tuned, because coming up after the news and the travel, it'll be the excellent Jo Good. She's bonkers, but she's absolutely wonderful. And I mean that from the... Oh, I'm getting dirty looks now. I'll shut up. Right, I'll shut up. But let's get the travel news now. Here's Pippa Sparks.